Imagine being kicked out of your own house by your own father, and your only weapon is 7 words. 7 carefully chosen words designed to pierce through royal protocol, cut through years of tension, and hit straight at the heart of what matters most: family. Prince Harry, freshly evicted from Frogmore Cottage like a tenant who forgot to pay rent, allegedly picked up the phone and asked King Charles a question so pointed, so emotionally loaded, that it could make even the most stoic monarch squirm. Those 7 words: "Don't you want to see your grandchildren?" And just like that, the gloves were off. Before we unpack this royal eviction drama that makes every landlord-tenant dispute look like a friendly disagreement, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, because this story has more layers than a royal wedding cake. Let's set the scene, shall we? Frogmore Cottage, 5 bedrooms of Windsor estate perfection, reportedly the late Queen Elizabeth's favourite spot within the grounds, and the newlywed gift that kept on giving until suddenly it didn't. When Harry and Meghan tied the knot back in 2018, they were handed the keys to this Georgian gem that had just received a cool £2.4 million makeover. We're talking renovations that probably included gold-plated doorknobs and toilets that curtsy when you enter the room. This wasn't just a house, this was a statement. The Queen was saying, "Welcome to the family. Here's a cottage that's nicer than most people's dream homes." But here's where fairy tales and reality start to diverge faster than Harry and Meghan diverged from royal duties. The couple's tenure at Frogmore Cottage was shorter than most Netflix series runs. They moved in, they enjoyed approximately 5 minutes of domestic bliss, and then 2020 happened. Megxit, stepping back, moving to California. The whole "we're out" declaration that shook the monarchy harder than an earthquake shakes a snow globe. Suddenly, Frogmore Cottage became less of a home and more of an extremely expensive storage unit for a couple living 6,000 miles away. Now, you might think that's where the story ends. Couple moves to America, keeps a UK base for visits, everyone moves on with their lives. But oh no, because this is the royal family we're talking about, where nothing is ever simple and everything has the potential to become an international incident. Fast forward to January 2023, and Prince Harry drops his literary bombshell, Spare, the memoir that spared absolutely no feelings and held back precisely nothing. The book was everywhere, revealing secrets faster than you could say bestseller list, and the palace was reportedly not amused.
And that's when the eviction notice arrived. Not literally with a knock on the door and a "you've got 30 days" warning, but the message was clear. Frogmore Cottage was no longer Harry and Meghan's Windsor address. The king, in what can only be described as the most expensive passive-aggressive move in parenting history, decided that his son and daughter-in-law needed to vacate the premises. Spring 2023 saw the Sussexes removing their last remaining belongings from the cottage, probably while a team of royal removalists ensured that every teaspoon was accounted for. But here's where it gets juicy, where the family drama transcends real estate and becomes something far more personal. According to Omid Scobie's book Endgame, which is either the most well-researched royal exposé or the most elaborate game of telephone, depending on who you ask, this eviction absolutely devastated Harry. And not just because he was losing a house, though losing a £2.4 million renovated cottage would upset anyone. No, Harry was upset because Frogmore represented something crucial, his anchor point in the UK, his base of operations for whenever he wanted to visit his home country, and, critically, a place where his children could stay when visiting their British family. Picture this phone call for a moment. Harry, sitting in his Montecito mansion, sunshine streaming through the windows, avocado toast probably on the counter, picks up the phone to call his father. Not just any father, but the King of England, the man who wears multiple crowns and has an entire country to run. And Harry, knowing full well that this conversation could go 100 different ways, decides to go straight for the emotional jugular with 7 simple words.
Don't you want to see your grandchildren? Let's appreciate the genius of this question for a second. It's not accusatory, it's not angry, it's not a demand, it's just a question that any grandfather should be able to answer with an immediate and enthusiastic yes. But it's also a loaded question, a trap disguised as an inquiry, because the implication is devastating. By evicting Harry from Frogmore, by removing his UK base, Charles was making it significantly harder for Harry to visit, which meant fewer visits, which meant less time with Archie and Lilibet. The question essentially asks, Dad, are you really choosing real estate over relationships? Are you picking a cottage over your grandchildren? The reported response from King Charles is almost more painful than silence would have been. According to Scobie's account, Charles offered a half-hearted declaration that Harry and his family would always have somewhere to stay. Somewhere. Not Frogmore, not a specific place, not a home, but somewhere. It's the verbal equivalent of telling your kid they can sleep on the couch when they visit. It's technically accommodation, but it's hardly the welcoming embrace of a grandfather desperate to spend time with his grandchildren. The lukewarm nature of that response speaks volumes about where the relationship stood in that moment.
Now let's talk about the woman behind the throne, or rather behind the eviction decision. Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, the no-nonsense, hard-working, take-no-prisoners daughter of the late Queen Elizabeth. According to Scobie's claims, Anne was at the forefront of the supporters of the firm approach taken by the palace regarding Harry and Meghan. If this is true, and it's worth noting that all of this comes from Scobie's interpretation of events, then Anne was essentially the enforcer, the one saying enough is enough, actions have consequences. And look, you can understand the palace perspective here, even if you don't agree with it. From their point of view, Harry wrote a book that aired every bit of dirty laundry the family had, participated in interviews that painted the institution in less than flattering light, and then expected to maintain all the perks of royal life, including prime real estate. The firm approach Anne allegedly championed was probably rooted in the idea that you can't have it both ways. You can't leave the firm, criticize the firm, profit from criticizing the firm, and then expect the firm to keep your cottage warm and waiting. But from Harry's perspective, and this is where the tragedy of the situation becomes apparent, he wasn't asking for special treatment. He was asking for a place where his kids could visit their grandfather, their uncle, their cousins. He was asking for the bare minimum that most fractured families manage to figure out, a neutral ground where children can maintain relationships with extended family despite their parents' disputes. Instead, he got somewhere, a vague promise that probably felt like a door slamming in his face. The timing of all this is crucial too. The eviction happened after Spare was released, which the palace saw as the final straw. But let's consider what Harry was trying to achieve with that book. Whether you think he was brave or petty, therapeutic or vindictive, the book was his attempt to tell his story, to explain his decisions, to give context to why he felt leaving was necessary. The eviction, coming so swiftly after publication, sent a clear message. You wanted to tell your story? Fine, but there are consequences. It was the royal version of you can't quit because you're fired. Here's what makes this entire situation so desperately sad. Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, two young children who had absolutely nothing to do with any of this adult drama, are caught in the crossfire. They haven't been back to the UK as a family since 2022, when they attended the late Queen Elizabeth's Platinum Jubilee celebrations. Think about that. Two children who have royal blood running through their veins, who have a grandfather who is literally the King of England, who have cousins their age running around palace grounds, and they're essentially separated from all of it by an ocean and a family feud. For Archie and Lilibet, the UK isn't home. It's that place across the ocean where they visited when they were tiny, where there are relatives they barely know, where their father comes from, but they don't really understand what that means.
They're growing up in California sunshine, completely removed from the British side of their heritage. And while that might be the life Harry and Meghan want for them, you have to wonder what happens in 10 or 15 years when those kids start asking questions about why they never see their grandfather, the king, why they don't know their cousins, why there's this entire side of their family that exists only in photographs and news articles. The Frogmore eviction wasn't just about a house, it was symbolic of a complete severing, a final declaration that Harry had gone too far and the path back wasn't going to be easy or comfortable. Every family has disagreements, every family has members who don't get along, but most families don't have the added complication of constitutional monarchy, public scrutiny, and real estate worth millions hanging in the balance. What's particularly gut-wrenching about Harry's 7-word plea is that it highlights the impossible position he's in. He left the royal family to protect his mental health and his wife, a decision that millions of people either applauded or condemned, depending on their perspective. But leaving meant losing things: security, status, money, and apparently property. He thought he could maintain some connection, some thread back to his homeland and his family, but the Frogmore eviction made it clear that partial membership wasn't an option. You're either in or you're out, and Harry chose out, so the palace chose to make that choice complete. Charles, for his part, is caught between being a father and being a king. As a father, presumably he wants a relationship with his son and grandchildren. As a king, he has to consider the institution, the message being sent, the precedent being set. Can you really trash the monarchy in a best-selling memoir and Netflix series and then expect to keep your royal cottage? From an institutional perspective, probably not, but from a family perspective, shouldn't love and blood trump real estate? The somewhere response suggests that Charles isn't entirely closed off to the idea of Harry visiting with the children, but it also suggests he's not going to make it easy or comfortable. It's the kind of response that keeps the door technically open while making sure the welcome mat has been definitely removed. Harry can visit, but he'll be reminded with every visit that things have changed, that his choices had consequences, that he's no longer the prince with a cottage, but rather the son without a home. So where does this leave everyone? Harry in California, Charles in various palaces, Archie and Lilibet growing up on a different continent from their royal relatives, and a family rift that shows no signs of healing. The 7-word plea went unanswered in any meaningful way. The cottage was cleared out, and the message was sent loud and clear: actions have consequences, even when you're family, maybe especially when you're family. The question, don't you want to see your grandchildren, hangs in the air unanswered, or rather answered with a lukewarm somewhere that speaks volumes about how fractured this family has become. It's a tragedy wrapped in privilege, a family drama playing out on the world stage, and a reminder that even with all the money, titles, and palaces in the world, you can't force people to reconcile when the wounds run this deep. If there's a lesson here, it's that words matter, actions have consequences, and family relationships are far more fragile than we like to believe, even when that family happens to rule a country. Harry took a gamble that he could tell his truth and maintain some connection to his roots, and the palace's response, "You chose your truth, now live with the consequences." Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button if this royal drama made your family gatherings look peaceful.